Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The Select Board's call to order October 24th, 2024 at 5 p.m. We're going to be going into executive session per MRSA 1405-6E to consult with town attorney regarding pending or contemplated litigation.
So I would move that we enter into executive session.
Second.
Yeah, John just made a motion.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Here we go.
All right, great.
Yep. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We've been in executive session from 5 o'clock on, and I'm looking for, and there was no action taken. I'm looking for a motion to come out of executive session.
So moved.
Second.
I have a first and second, all in favor. So we're going to do something that we haven't done in a long time. Mary Beth suggested it a couple of meetings ago, and the board thought it was a great idea. We're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance, and I wish that you would all would join us. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Where'd it go?
Okay, approve the October 10th, 2024 Select Board meeting minutes.
So moved?
Second.
I have a first and a second. Any discussion? Not hearing none. All in favor? Public forum. This is an opportunity for anyone who wants to address the Board of Selectmen with any issue that is not on the agenda. Is there anybody out in TV land?
We have 2 people, but no hands raised.
Okay. 5, consideration of the Biddeford boundary line agreement. Hi, Becky.
Hi. Good evening.
Hi, Becky.
Hi, I'm Becky. I'm Logan, the tax assessor. So I am here tonight to remind you about the town boundary line between Biddeford and Kennebunkport. And you had asked me then to speak to the new owners who are here tonight. So I've done a little more homework on the property in question because I know there was discussion between the 1732 line and the 1978 line. And we talked about the 1732 line, which puts the white dotted line is the 1732 line. And the black line that runs through the house, where you can see where kind of the right there, yes, is the 1978 line. So those are the 2 lines. So,
Don't forget the mic.
sorry. I forget that I have a voice. So what we need to do at this point, I mean, regardless of what the board decides, whether, do you have a question, Mary Beth?
No,
I'm sorry.
Mike.
Oh,
Keep
sorry. Okay, sorry. Regardless of what the board decides on the decision of whether we go with the 1732 or the 1978 line, discussions will have to be had with Biddeford. Lori and I both reached out to Jim Bennett, the city manager of Biddeford, and we're hoping to have a meeting with him so we know where Biddeford stands on the town line.
Obviously, the line's bigger than what we see on, so this is the only structure that is compromised by this line?
Yes.
So what's your recommendation? Which boundary is better? Which one did
So-
you see that? was-
So, I feel like I have such a
it'll-
booming voice anyway. You
It'll hear
really
you.
need the microphone.
It'll hear you.
I personally feel that the 1978 line is the most documented line, so that to me seems like the logical line to go with because Biddeford had paid for the expense to have it surveyed and monumented and all that. However, what we'd like to propose to Biddeford is that the house for assessment and zoning purposes remains in Kennebunkport. Even though the line technically goes through the house, that we come to an agreement with Biddeford and say, the house has historically been assessed in Kennebunkport, we'd like to keep it in Kennebunkport.
So
instead of,
how does the owners feel about that?
you can ask them, this is Matt and Lisa Ballard. I'll just put my stuff aside.
Hi there. How are you?
Greetings,
I'm Matt,
welcome.
Lisa.
So
we
you just do yours.
Okay. We had prepared some comments, which Lisa was going to touch on, just to talk about our history, how we chose this particular property about a year ago. I still think it's relevant, so maybe you can just give a couple highlights, just so that you understand how we are vested in Kennebunkport. and the reasons why we chose Kennebunkport and our history there. It also relates to what our plans were with this property, and our son and his wife of 2 weeks.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
But also, and maybe you can, if you want to just think about your comments for a second, I just wanted to bring up, well, I think it's important. And there are a couple things that I just wanted to offer some clarification on from the meeting back in June. We watched that recording. The first thing is regarding the scope of the survey. We engaged the surveyor to prepare a proposal to carve out one Kennebunkport lot, building lot, for our son and his wife from our Kennebunkport land, so that they could someday build a house. And this is, as Lisa noted, but she hasn't noted that because you haven't heard from her yet. But in that meeting, I think it was presented that we had engaged the surveyors to resolve the property line dispute between the towns, and that was not the case. It was because we want to subdivide one lot. We're not interested in making any subdivision of the 23 acres that we own, other than a building lot for our son and his wife. So we did not engage them to solve the town line boundary dispute. That is important to us, obviously, but it's not why we hired them. We told the surveyors about the dispute, and they contacted both Biddeford and Kennebunkport for any insight. And Becky was extremely helpful, as I understand it, with them and certainly with us as well as we've gone through this process. We told the surveyors about the dispute, and they I told you that. In order to eliminate any possibility of the town line dispute interfering with a Kennebunkport lot proposal, we asked the surveyors to use the 1978 line, which is the one that is recognized by Biddeford.
Who was your surveyor?
Nadeau Surveyors, N-A-D-E-A-U.
So you didn't go back to Dow?
No.
Okay.
Nadeau was familiar with the property and had done a survey in the past for the former owners. And that 1978 line does cut more into the Kennebunkport line, but by us recognizing the 1978 line and the surveyor recognizing it, we felt like we would more than meet the Kennebunkport requirements, zoning requirements related to any setbacks on that side of the new lot. So we didn't know where you would settle on which property line. So in order for us to be able to move forward with a lot for Sam and Zoe, then we would use, from our perspective, worst case scenario, so that it would also make it easier for Kennebunkport to accept that.
The 1978
Yes.
survey?
Yes, yep. The second thing was that as you can see here, in the prior meeting, it was presented that the 1978 line essentially separates the barn from the house. And I just wanted to provide clarification that that isn't completely accurate. Yeah, the black line up there goes through the house, and actually the primary bedroom, a family room, the kitchen, and the driveway going into the barn would still all be in Kennebunkport. And the last thing, you had asked how we felt about this entire situation, and we just want to make it clear that we 100% want the Kennebunkport house to remain a Kennebunkport address.
Okay. Glad to hear it.
Yeah.
I'm curious, where did the black lines come from? What data is that?
This is the Biddeford GIS
That's the
map.
Biddeford GIS, that's what I think, so I'm wondering why, good, so that's the Biddeford cadastre, okay.
So I just want to make sure, Kennebunkport is on the bottom half of the screen.
Yeah,
And
this is like-
Biddeford is the top half.
Right.
Right.
So this is actually.
But I had asked a question about where the primary bedroom was, and you're saying that even with this, the black line, it's actually in Kennebunkport.
Sounds like
Yes.
it's right
It
here,
is.
correct?
That's correct.
Right
Yeah.
there.
With the kitchen.
With the kitchen,
With
so
the
you
kitchen.
eat and sleep in Kennebunkport.
Yes, yeah, the kitchen is that.
guests would stay in Bedford.
Guest stay in Bedford,
Unless it goes right through the bedroom, then you don't know.
but that's, yeah.
I'm all for it. I think that's a wonderful thing. Everybody, and I'm hoping that Biddeford would accept it.
Yeah,
But that's just me. I don't know what the other four.
So Becky,
I'm certainly moved by the fact that we have always considered it Kennebunkport in the past, so on what basis would we change it? Why would we change it? So
I agree.
I could see Bedford may have an issue, and that's something to talk about.
So if you do decide to change it and go with the 1732 line,
1778.
no, don't confuse me. So there's a 1978 line and a 1732 line.
Oh, all right.
So the 17,
Can you go?
that's 78, the black line is 78, the white line is 1732.
So the imagery is actually based on the 32, which is interesting, the older one.
Right, because the town of Kennebunkport, we never officially accepted the 1978 line that Biddeford had proposed after they had had it surveyed. So that's why it looks like that, because Biddeford under.
Our imagery and their cadastre. and that's the reason why it's a
Correct,
little
because
confusing.
when they did the survey, because Kennebunkport did not agree with the line at that time, they didn't even record that page of the survey. So so the only thing that was recorded previously was the other from Dayton all the way down. But once it hit the Kennebunkport line, they stopped because they didn't record it. They surveyed it, they just didn't record it because we had not paid for it or agreed to it. So the only thing with going with the 1732 line, based on state statute, is you're gonna have to redo the line. So the line's gonna have to be rewalked, remonumented, retraced. Biddeford's gonna have to be notified, the whole gamut. It has to be resurveyed. There's commissioners that have to now write a report. Once it gets surveyed, it has to go to the court system, and the court gets to decide. Because if we're disputing the 78 line that Biddeford agreed to, and we want to go with 1732, it will be costly.
But
That's why I was suggesting
Right.
going with the 78 line and hoping that Biddeford would accept a proposal of us grandfathering the house, because that's what we have historically done.
But for decades, it has sat between the two towns, and neither town has made a move.
Correct,
Right.
correct.
So,
But it's been recognized as being in Kennebunkport because Biddeford is not assessing it. Biddeford, I don't know who agreed in the 80s when we finally paid for the survey, how they were going to do it. That's what one of my conversations with the Biddeford assessor was, do you have any information as to why you guys weren't assessing the house? Because according to the 78 line, it would have been in Biddeford. They had no record of it. There was
well, I think
no indication.
when we read through the packet you guys
Mm-hmm.
supplied us, Biddeford, I think there was a letter from somebody from.
Biddeford
from
to the mayor.
Biddeford to the mayor.
Yeah, who
saying
was-
that
yeah. Mm-hmm.
We should go ahead and just file, and then let Kennebunkport come
Deal with it. Mm-hmm.
back, deal with it, and it seemed like Biddeford made the decision not to do that somewhere in their
So
government.
So what Biddeford ended up doing is, because we didn't agree, they didn't record that portion of the survey.
Right.
So
So-
it's,
So the only thing
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I have, so I agree with the carve out, like, if we could find a way, and Becky, I don't know, like, if we just go back to Biddeford, I don't know, like, how it would ever get recorded. Would we just have to, for this one area, would we have to just go walk that line and resurvey that? And then that would be an agreement between Biddeford and,
that I'm not sure. That would be, I think, an Amy question, because I don't know, according to the statute, the disputed line has to be re-monumented.
I think Becky's proposal is that the board agree to the 1978 line if we can get agreement from Biddeford that the primary residence would remain as assessed in Kennebunkport and the zoning on the primary residence would be
Yes.
applied in Kennebunkport.
I'd like to see that.
Agree to it just in this one area or the line for the entire line?
So the entire line doesn't, this is the part where it skews the most. It matches back up,
Ah, that's what
okay?
I-
So this is the part where it skews.
My
that
concern is,
it's
what are we agreeing to? What beyond the scope of this?
The
Right.
rest of it is just land, there's no other
Yes.
structure.
So this is the only residence
Yes.
that this is impacting.
Correct,
And it's
correct.
not a whole lot of land and what?
It is not anything that you are gonna miss in your valuation.
All right, so
Right.
if we agree to that line,
Mm-hmm.
So how?
I think,
So,
but then
So-
this is all Biddeford then, everything here becomes.
Yeah.
yeah,
So this is Biddeford, if we agree to
Yep.
this
Mm-hmm.
line?
Right.
So where is the cutout? The cutout's gonna be just for,
well, we won't have a cutout.
It's
we'll
not
have
a cutout.
Right, it won't be a cutout. It will
The
be more
line will
of,
stay.
Yes.
It's just an agreement about who's assessing and zoning the primary residence.
this
Right.
line, here's the boundary.
Yes.
but The agreement will be that this property
yes,
is
Will belong
taxed and assessed
Right.
by the
what
town of
town,
Kennebunkport.
who owns this building?
That's in
they do.
Bedford.
And we're assessing that one as well.
So
That's I think it's an is it an
you
outbuilding?
you own
Yeah.
all this, you own all this property here.
Yes, and
They
across
own on
over in
the other
Biddeford
side
too.
as well,
Yes.
the other side of Biddeford that you can't
And
see.
I don't know, so there's nobody else living down here? That's not somebody's trailer or something? That's-
No, somebody does live
That
there.
is, that is someone's home there,
That's someone's home.
across the street.
This right here?
Who taxes?
No.
No, 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 no. That one
There you
is.
go, sorry.
No.
That is
Yeah.
our land,
This-
Kennebunkport. You're-
That's part of ours, yeah.
you're
So
right.
Becky, would the proposal be to Biddeford that will accept the black line,
Mm-hmm.
the 1978 line, with, if they come to an agreement that all that property at that address is for purposes of taxes, voting, kids go to school.
And
it
zoning
is
as well. Mm-hmm.
Zoning, it is grandfathered as a Kennebunkport.
Correct. That's what we're hoping. That's what we're asking. Because we figure that seems to be the easiest and least expensive
For everybody.
for everybody. Even if, for argument's sake, we lost the house, the value that we'd lose isn't as much as how much it would cost us, the town, to have to recertify.
It's not a dollar thing,
Right, no, but
But
that,
that's
yeah,
fair.
right.
but it's just the building.
Remember the microphone.
Where's the land? It's just the building we're talking about. What about assessing how much land? I
So-
imagine your property goes quite a ways. Does it go
Right.
up into Biddeford as well?
Yes, there are 16 acres that are assessed
In
in
Kennebunkport, yep.
and 7 acres in Biddeford.
and then the new split
And
would be
that's based on
what?
which line?
That is based,
On what,
that's based on both lines, if I'm not mistaken. Is
Well,
that
it
right?
can't be based on both. The numbers can't be the same.
I believe it's still based on the 1732 line.
Yeah.
Because yes, I believe that we hold more of the land on our side. And so the split that they're proposing, regardless of the 1732 or the 1978 line, it's all going to be in Kennebunkport. So there's no question about the lot split that they would like to do for their son. It's going to be in Kennebunkport, regardless of whatever line, because that's why they had the surveyor go in and do that, so they could kind of see where they would be able to cut out a parcel for their son.
So the proposal that you've got for your son and daughter-in-law is to cut it out, and that land that you want to cut out is already in Kennebunkport and will remain in Kennebunkport even if we go with this 1978 line. So that's already in Kennebunkport.
Correct,
So that's not an issue. It's really not an issue. That part
Right.
is not an issue.
correct.
I mean, Kennebunkport has always taxed this property, correct?
As I went back into the records, and I went back to 1898, and yes, we were assessing a homestead and 67 acres at that time.
Okay.
And it was the Emmons farm. So,
Oh, it's Emmons, was it?
yep, Hiram Emmons, yeah. And then they transferred it to Washington Emmons. So yes, historically, from what I can tell, we've always been assessing a homestead.
But
You know, what it looked like then, I don't know, but we were assessing a building at that time.
Okay. Yeah. What's the pleasure of the board?
Again, I totally believe it ought to stay assessed as Kennebunkport. I'm just a little uncomfortable deciding without having more information to change a line that
We're not changing a line.
I'm sorry, I thought we were now recognizing a line.
We're recognizing
I would think, wasn't the proposal you would only
All we are
recognize the
doing
line
is
if
taking that
Biddeford
house
agreed?
and keeping it in
No, wait a minute,
Kennebunkport.
let John finish. What
Right.
line?
I didn't think that was so. I thought the town now recognizes the older line,
No, the newer
The
line.
newer
the
one.
newer one,
Right.
78.
So we.
So what are we saying then?
So we.
So current-
Let
okay.
me try.
Okay.
So we recognize right now as the town of Kennebunkport, the 1732 line,
Right,
which is the white line.
right, that's what I'm saying.
And what we're proposing right now, or what Becky has brought forward to the board, is that we go to the black line.
Well, that's my point. I don't know what that means, what, outside the lines I'm looking at here, what are the
So
other
what-
consequences
what
of
they
going
said
to
is-
that line?
So what they said is, what I heard, is that this is the only property. on
With a
that-
house on it, yes, that would be affected.
On that line,
Mm-hmm.
on the new line, between 32 and 78.
But
that would
somebody else
be.
owns that land.
No, they own it.
They
They're on
own.
the other side of it.
You own everything that's the gap between 17 and?
I don't know if it's
I
the
don't
entire
think
gap, but
so.
the majority
No.
of the gap,
So
yeah.
therefore, other people are gonna be affected by this decision that are not in this room.
But the 1732 line and the 1978 line match up. They only skew at the beginning, where Little River is. That's where,
So
That's
only
where-
their property is affected by this decision.
correct. I mean, other properties, land only, but it wouldn't be, because as soon as it matches up, it's fine.
Well,
It,
again,
and,
as long
yeah,
as it matches up, but where it doesn't match it up, we're
It's their
making a
property.
decision on somebody else's land.
no, it's theirs.
I think it's just, if I'm not mistaken, we're the only homeowners that have a home
I
that will
got
be
that.
affected by it. But I think, if I'm not mistaken, there are other property owners that will have land that's affected. They just don't have a home that the line is going to.
Why do we have to, to get this done, why do we have to accept the 78 line, the new line? Can we get this done without saying we're just gonna change what we recognize as Kennebunkport and Biddeford?
So you're asking, what do we do if we don't recognize the 1978 line? Or we just, we
How
don't say
can we
anything?
get this done without having to say we're
We
gonna?
can't.
That's
Yeah, that, I
Yeah,
don't
so
believe,
I
I don't
don't
believe
think
there's a
we-
way to.
Okay, that's what I'm just
Yeah,
saying.
yeah, that's the
we-
thing. I don't believe there's a way to do
We
that.
can't because, so we dug in, right, on the 38 line. And then there's the mass, there's the mass court got involved, there's, the 78, the big study that went through, it got some of our town officials involved, some of our code people back then. And that was the new, the line that now is seen as the 78 line. So there's input
Correct.
in there. But for whatever reasons, to your point, John, the Kennebunkport Select Board and the municipal part of Kennebunkport has never accepted beyond the 38 line.
Why?
Because the previous homeowner came to the board and requested that they not accept it and let him stay in Kennebunkport.
Because it would have changed his. And that's the only reason.
I mean,
So-
I wasn't here
I wasn't either.
in the 80s. I was in college.
So
So-
in our,
I can vote for it. I'm just, again, uncomfortable that there are people being affected that are not in this room that we haven't heard from. But, and you were saying it's just land, but to a lot of people, just land.
so
think what
maybe,
Dawn's
could
asking-
that be an action
And
then,
the
is to just go back and come back to the board and just say, are there other areas where that line is, diverges from each other, and what types of,
What's the impact? I mean, how much land and is it?
A lot of the land along the Biddeford Kennebunkport line is owned by the Conservation Trust. I don't know where exactly, because I don't have the assessing records,
It's going
but
to be
a lot
easy
of,
to do. That's what GISs are for. We'll be able to carve out that slice, lay it over, find out who owns it. And just, if that can be put to bed, and there aren't issues with that and those landowners,
okay.
otherwise, I mean, maybe we'd still do it, but I think we need to hear from everyone affected by this decision, just to accept a line.
Okay.
That's my,
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't know if we have to postpone anything. I still think can we move forward, just?
You're asking the wrong guy, I don't know.
I think you would want to maybe hold off, because then I do not believe, based on what Becky's telling us, that we're going to uncover another issue. But if you're going to go to another town, I think if it's a quick enough thing to come back to the board with, then we can at least check that box and be clear so that we're not,
Right, because right now, we
you know,
don't
going to
know
Biddeford
Biddeford's
and then
position.
coming back.
Right.
We have no,
Well,
I have no
Right.
idea
Well,
what
we're
Biddeford
giving
is
land
thinking.
to Biddeford, basically, is what's occurring by this, right?
We're
So-
recognizing the boundary.
We're
yes.
recognizing.
We're just
the boundary.
recognizing, we're accepting it and actually putting it out there so it is a permanent record that somebody can look up. Because right now, this is why the surveyor reached out, because there's no documentation of an official town boundary line, because there isn't one. The 1732 line was a document that's in an archive. It's not recorded. The 78 one is recorded. That's the recorded deed or the recorded survey. Before that, of course, back in the 1700s, I don't know what they did.
So everybody's assessment in terms of property taxes they're paying is based on the 78? Is there anybody's assessment that would be based on the older line?
All of them are on the older line now, because that's the one, that's the only, we never accepted the 1978 line.
So
But what
So-
from Biddeford?
they didn't do it either.
Biddeford, no, Biddeford, because we didn't agree to 1978, said, okay, well, they're going to do 1732, then what could they do? They try, I mean,
So they do
from what I
1732.
understand, the correspondence, Biddeford was not happy with Kennebunkport because we didn't agree to it. And they felt that, I think he said it, he felt like it was an embarrassment because we didn't do that. And anybody going to Biddeford or anybody questioning property along there,
Right.
they would have no answer because Kennebunkport never accepted it.
So
So,
I think where we are at this point is,
Let's find it.
you know, so I think, you know, Lori and Becky are right to bring it forward because, one, the property owners want to do something, and then so we've got an issue where, just like Becky and Lori have said to us, we're sort of in this stalemate, you know, because we haven't done anything. And when I read through the packet, like I said before, our board has made, the Kennebunkport board has said, no, 32 is the line. But when you read through the packet, you know, a homeowner came forward, Jim Steele came forward with some deeds that he found. But when Becky and the team have gone back to find any evidence that we as a board can say 32 is it, nothing exists for us other than the fact that previous boards have not accepted any change. That's the only thing we have. We have no other evidence. Instead, we have evidence to the contrary. We have, as Alan was saying, Dow is a very reputable surveyor. They went through all the legal documents, all the old documents. We had our previous municipality people at the time involved in that survey. So there's a lot of stuff that we've been involved with, but we just never made it. So it's at the point where either we do this and make this offer to Biddeford for both ourselves to keep a resident in town, which we would like to do, but make the onus over that says, okay, we'll recognize the line if that's possible. I think that would be one thing, and as long as there's no other residents that need to be taken into account here. Or in order to allow people to do what they need to do that live on this line, we would have to actually take an action to do something. We'd actually have to go and cite or survey or do something, because otherwise we're just sitting and we're putting residents sort of at a little bit of risk here, if they want to do something with this property. Does that make any sense or no?
Yeah.
and I do just want to add that if no decision is made, or we continue on and we go, yeah, we don't want to deal with this, we're going to continue to assess the house in Kennebunkport anyway, until Biddeford comes forward or there's some sort of action, because there's no evidence to change anything at this point. If we're just going to be like, okay, we don't want to recognize the 78 line, we're just going to leave it alone,
No,
we continue to do that.
I'm not in favor of kicking this down the road
Me
anymore.
neither.
It's been since 1732.
Correct.
How long this has been going on? So we got to get it solved. I think
Right.
what the board has said, or what I heard the board said, is if you could find out the other properties in town that this line impacts until where it meets up again, so it's not an impact, and just come back, find out who those landowners are, so we
Okay.
can maybe notify them that this is an issue. But I firmly would like to keep these folks in town, get it resolved, go to Biddeford, try and work out a deal, and then maybe adopt the 1978 line. But this board cannot kick this down the road.
No, I totally agree.
So it's got to get done. It can't be done tonight. I think you've gotten direction from what we would like to see, so we can make a decision to solve this problem for the new
We
residents.
just notify them. If they say it's not a problem, then we're done. If they have a problem, they come in and state it, and then we can decide whether we're gonna, still do it anyway.
Okay, so we're talking,
So
so we're,
I've got it.
okay.
We're good. Becky and I will work on it.
Thank you so much.
All right, that
Thank you.
works.
Thank you,
Thank
Becky.
you. We'll
keep
make
in
it
town.
done. You're in Kennebunkport.
Right on, sounds great, thank you.
Moving along.
You're not looking for a vote. I
Item
think.
6. No, we're not going to do anything with it. Item 6, purchase and disposal of public works equipment.
So Eric LaBelle is on vacation, and so Matt Philbrick is stepping in.
Hey, Matt.
Yes.
Hello,
Good
Matt.
evening.
How you doing?
Thanks for having me. So I'm here tonight to propose and discuss the purchase and trade-in of two older vehicles we have at Public Works. One of them is a 2016 5-ton international dump truck, and the other one is a 2003 2.5-ton dump truck. Both trucks need a lot of work to get back on the road. The 2016 needs about $10,000 worth of a wiring harness, and the 2003 has a broken frame.
Is that the one that had the corrosion between the?
Yes, it's a
yeah,
double
yeah,
frame
yeah,
truck.
that's
Yep, and over time it has weakened and finally cracked. The coal planer new from Trackless comes in at about $28,000. Currently, we are being able to purchase it for $9,000 with the trade-ins.
That's amazing.
We've previously been approved to put the deep reduction gearing in the Trackless we just purchased as well. So it is compatible as it is right now.
And we have the money to do it, don't we?
We do, we just have enough.
It almost sounds too good to be true, though. I mean, why?
Great deal.
What did they?
It's a good,
Okay,
it's
all
a
right.
great deal. It
It
is.
was a
Okay, shut up and
little bit
take
of
it, right.
discussion
All
with
right.
SA McLean to get it there.
Do you want to just talk about how we might use it?
Yeah, so a coal planer is great for any imperfection that we can have in our hot top surfaces, as well as working with the sewer department to do any sort of manhole repair. The big expenditure or the big savings that we'll see from it is when we work with our paving contractor, they will not have to hire a third party, which costs us money to do what we call butt joints or driveway joints. We can do that ourselves and work ahead of them.
Does Kennebunk have one?
They may have one on a skid steer, but I'm not absolutely sure.
Because we share stuff with Kennebunk as a good neighbor, and I'd just like to know if we have a leg up.
We have a leg up.
We have a leg up, and we can ask them for some.
We have a leg up from Arundel.
We do. I'm pretty sure they do not have a coal planer attachment for their skid steer. We would ask to use it by now.
Like, if we were looking for some money for a study,
Oh, like for a
You know?
study.
Yeah.
Interesting thought. I like that.
we could say, hey, we got this equipment.
Coal
here. We'd
planer.
like you to-"
It sounds wonderful. You guys did a great job putting together this deal. That's really
Yeah.
wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
It's an awkward deal, but it's a great deal.
No,
This is, it is. So I'm in favor.
Okay,
So am I. Make a
So-
motion?
do a motion.
All right. Gonna have me do it. I gotta find the words,
I
but
gotta
it,
find my,
but without the words, I'd like
So
to.
make a motion to approve the coal planer with a cash price of $9,000 with the trade-in of our two old vehicles.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the coal planer for a cash value of $9,000 with the trade-in of our two old, decrepit, hardly worth it, and why are they doing it, trucks.
I second that.
I have a first. Do I have a second?
Second.
First and second. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Really well done.
So can I ask Becky to come back up?
Sure.
I shortcutted her. She was going to talk a little bit about our state valuation numbers we just got in.
Yes, so Lori received our proposed state valuation numbers in September, and the state is assessing us, or proposed valuation is $4,533,600. And of course, Lori kind of was like, wow, and I did the same thing. However,
So let's just pause for a minute.
4 billion?
Billion was the word I heard.
correct,
4.5 billion.
yes.
So
That's the age of the
the
earth.
state, is it?
Yeah.
So the state audits every municipality's valuation to determine your ratio, meaning are you at 100% market, 70%? And so they do that by analyzing market sales. And the assessor throws out bad ones, and they analyze the good ones, and they come up with this ratio. They do it for old data, just so we're clear.
Yes.
They don't do it on current data.
Right.
So what the state told us for 2025, and remember, this number's used in school funding formulas, it's
Yeah.
used in state revenue sharing, it's used in the county assessment. So they said we have $1 billion more in valuation than we have on our books. So they are saying we're at 80% valuation rate,
Based on what did that billion come from?
market sales. they're
Yes,
saying.
sales from 2022 to 2023. That's what that proposed valuation is on, and that's what my audit was on with all the sales that Lori spoke of, which they determined have us at about 80%. So my current valuation is 80% of the $4.5 billion,
Which means?
which means that the assessor has some work to do, and she has to continue to monitor sales and see where the prices are going. The difficult part is because this information is based on old sales, prices have, things are slowing down a little bit, prices are kind of stagnant, some are starting to go down. However, they're still higher than what I have them assessed for. But this is my job now to look and see where my assessments need to be adjusted. So we've had a few new subdivisions, and with subdivisions, we don't know what the value necessarily will be because we don't know what they're selling for yet. We go with what the information that we have. So for instance, I have one subdivision that the assessments are about at 180,000 because that's the information I had when I created the lots. However, now that they're beginning to sell, they're selling for 380, 400. So there's one set of adjustments, and that's 13 lots right there. So there are adjustments that can be made as I see the sales going up or down.
But
Do we,
So that get us closer to meeting the
So then it
sales
would get us closer, right, and to 100%,
We'd
because
be
that's our
less-
goal.
we'd be less.
so. but
Correct.
At 80, what's the impact if we're only at 80?
So at 80%, the homestead exemption gets adjusted by 80%, veterans exemptions, everything gets adjusted by that ratio, that 80%.
Down?
Yes.
Yes, down. So instead of the $25,000 exemption, whatever 80% of that would be, I can't do the math in my head that quickly.
25,000.
Wow, wow.
Very good, thank you.
And,
Yeah,
and
So-
would we have
So-
to reassess as well? Isn't there something that triggers a reassessment?
yes, if our ratio goes below 70% or above 110. So right now, we're at 81. It is common for values and percentages to change based on, because again, these are sales from 2 years ago. So I'm working with, I can't predict the future, we only go with the past. So that's why we make adjustments kind of as we can see what is happening and.
Do you make an so you have a house assessed at 500,000. It's, goes on the market, sells for 750. Do you make that adjustment
No.
at that sale?
No, that is, no,
What we're doing is mass appraisal.
yes,
And so what that
Right.
means is we come up with a unit for land based on a neighborhood. We come up with a unit for a Cape versus a Colonial based on what construction costs are. And then that's mass applied. So it's not that direct.
correct.
But number of bedrooms is in there, right? So that's.
Number-
Yes.
It's about number of bedrooms, number of bathrooms. But it's really, the majority of the numbers about the square foot and the acreage
Yes,
and waterfront.
So can
So, so I just want to tell you that this does not mean you need to be on high alert,
right,
but what we wanted to make you aware of it because it is surprising to be at 80% after 2 years of putting in
yeah,
a new value. And so it's something we're watching closely and we may be talking more about in the budget season.
When would the homestead exemption penalty kick in?
Say that
You
again?
mean what,
Well, you said if
It-
we're at 80,
right.
the homestead exemption would be decreased for each property.
correct. So
When
that
would
would go
that
into effect April 1st of 2025.
So next year.
Yes, next year. Now where we got these proposed valuations, and right now we're at 80%, I haven't received my documents yet because I get audited on my MVR. So they haven't reviewed that yet. They're looking at my sales analysis from now 23 and 24.
Okay.
So when I get that usually, usually in the spring. It depends. Sometimes, I used to get it earlier, but now it's like April. And the state then says, here is my developed parcel ratio. And then I have a 10% deviation. So if they come in and say my ratio is 81%, I can go up to 90.
So I have a question.
Wow, I didn't get
Yes.
that, but go ahead.
So we're 1 billion over our last year's assessment?
According to the state.
Yes, according to the state.
And so when we look at our school tax, our school ratio, like
'Mostly on valuation,
80% of that equation is on evaluation, right? Something like that?
90%
But on state evaluation or on our evaluation?
on state.
State.
So right now, according to the state, Kennebunkport's at 4.5, Kennebunk's at 4.7. Or they will be for 2025.
Do you know what they were last year by any chance?
I'd have to go back and look.
Were we higher than them last year for some?
No, we've
No.
never been higher than them.
No.
And keep in mind that Kennebunk hasn't done their reval yet. They're still going through that process. And so when they catch up with the reval, we might see their number bump more. But it's going to impact us
In
when those formulas get.
a positive way or in a
A
negative?
negative way. Negative way.
It's gonna cost us.
Yeah, it's gonna cost, get your wallet out.
Okay.
So that's the problem, that's the thing with that equation with the tax assessment.
Yeah, no, it's, yeah.
That's why. And so,
Well, we can't,
so Becky, in history, like you're saying, like we had, so we did have, it looks like, post-COVID, we had, the surge in prices everyone has. You said we're starting to see a little bit of slowing. Have we ever seen evaluations dip, like year over year? Do they ever come back down, or is it just a one-way trend?
I've never seen it go down, but I know that in 2009 and 8.
I have seen it go down.
Yeah, I
When we've
haven't,
had
yeah.
those big recessions.
Right.
And we've been over 100%
Right.
in the communities I've been in.
Right,
Okay. Wow, isn't this a little bit of good
aren't you
news?
glad you came back up?
Yeah,
Very little.
come on, it's not
Thanks,
that.
Becky.
So we can't lose that house in Canada.
for nothing, Becky.
No, we can't lose that house.
So last year, Kennebunk we were 3.8, according to the state, and Kennebunk was 4.1.
And we still paid.
So they've
And
gone-
we did have a lot of big
They're now
sales
4
in
or 5,
2022.
4 or
So that is what will affect that valuation, because we did have several really high sales.
Yeah.
And I can't adjust them as sales come in because that's illegal, because we do mass appraising, but it's something that I watch. We just have not,
Okay.
there's not enough right now for me to say, okay, this area needs to be raised, except for that subdivision that I spoke of, because there's sales happening, they're active, I know what's going on. But unfortunately, Kennebunkport is very unique, very special. People spend a lot of money, and then we'll tear a house down and rebuild. That will skew numbers tremendously, because according to the state, if a sale comes in, it looks like an arm's length transaction. I don't have any documentation to say that it's not a good sale, but there's a huge difference between somebody paying $6.9 million on a property that I have assessed at 3.5, and then they tear it down. I have one coming up on Kings Highway. They bought 2 houses for $8 million, and the plan is to tear it down and build something new.
So I have a question. How many tear downs have we had in the last year?
I believe, I think it was about, I want to say 51.
Tear downs? 51? Wow.
Yeah, there was a lot. There was a lot, yeah.
So-
And, yes.
So the way that tear down, where it.
Oh, no, sorry, I got it backwards. 16 tear downs, 51 new homes, sorry.
Oh, okay.
I apologize. I'm trying to remember because I don't have it. I just filled out the document.
Okay.
I was trying to remember. I had it backwards. I apologize.
Say no,
I apologize.
16 tear downs is still a lot.
Yeah.
So on a tear down, so if you had it for X and then they put in something that's 2X, what we're saying is that our evaluation is just going to still show the X, but the state's going to show the 2X?
No, so, not quite. So what happens is, the property sells. We got house, land, and it sells for $6 million.
Right.
Okay, and then they tear it down and build something new. Well, the value that I had originally on the original house, let's just say, is 3.5.
Yeah.
And they bought it for 6.9 and then tear it down. Then they build a new house. My new house gets valued based on what I have, what my cost tables are, what was built and everything.
For
So
the new house.
For the new house. So, but again, with the new house, you know, how much value does that come to? And then there's questions on whether the state looks at the tear downs as land-only sales. I do not look at those as land-only sales. I know that some do, because if you're spending $8 million or $6 million and you're tearing a house down, what did you do? You just spent $6 million for a piece of land.
Right.
Which,
So the state, did you say the state kicks out highs and,
I'm the one that kicks out the highs.
so the state doesn't? So on this eval, like
So-
saying that the record sale price that we had recently is not even in this number because this was 20.
Correct. Correct. So that one's not in there yet.
So our number's not going down.
No, why am I trying to understand this?
You
Thank
guys don't want to
Thank
be
you, Becky.
assessors?
Thank you.
Assessing
Maybe
101?
a special little meeting we could have to understand how it all works.
Wow.
I would be more than willing to sit down with all of you and discuss how assessing works if you want.
Give us a lesson,
It
huh?
would be good.
Yeah,
There's real magic
It
here.
would be good.
okay.
Thank you,
Thank
Becky.
you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Becky.
You're welcome.
Okay, item 7, discussion of dune restoration funding.
Thank you. That'd be me.
That'd be you?
And I'm pleased to announce that we have passed all of our permitting requirements for the restoration effort at Goose Rocks Beach. This is an expansion of what we had done, or what the trust had done for their lots last spring. It's the same process where we'll be scraping up sand to restore the dune surface. FEMA, we've been working with FEMA to get approval for the project. The way FEMA works is that the recipient of any award needs to spend the money with the knowledge that FEMA will 5 or 6 months later pay the 80% of that value. There is a 15% copay, if you would, or skin that we have to put in as a town, 15 cents on every dollar. Part of that is MEMA, the main emergency, and the FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Group. So our total amount is on the order of $125,000. I'm going to use, I think it's 120, but let's say 125, which means that 12 plus 6, $1,800, $18,000 would be required from the town if we indeed decide to move forward. The issue is that we need to spend the full 120 today, this month, if we do this work. Therefore, we're at risk if we don't have 100% assurance from FEMA that we'll get the money back. We don't have that because FEMA has not had the time to go through the full process and assess our grant and our request. However, what I do have, and what the town has, is in writing from The main individual who does FEMA's beach restoration programs, his name is Bob Glasson out of Florida. Bob has been working closely with the town, and he has given us, on his experience and his knowledge, a 90% probability that this will be funded. I take this as quite rather astounding, actually, that a federal employee would give that kind of number. They can't say 100%, obviously. But in my thinking, and I think Lori agrees with me, that if you have a 90%, that's about as close to an sure thing as you could get. So what I'm asking is that the board would be willing to approve a $120,000 expenditure, let's say 125, just to cover any extras that we might need, from the resiliency line item that we placed for this year. You'll remember that line item was 450,000, was the net of what that item would be. To date, we have allocated some pieces from that, and Lori, there are numbers here that I didn't recognize, so I'll let you take, if you were willing, what we have remaining in that fund, if indeed we take 120 from it.
Yeah, so first I just want to go back to the cost. So you were looking at the cost minus our 10% contribution when you came up with the 120.
With the 120?
Yeah. So we got the bid in today for excavation, which was 118,000. And then the dune plants, our low bid was 22,712. So I get about 140,000.
Got it.
$712 total.
141, let's say, okay?
Yep, and so 10% of that would be our responsibility anyway under FEMA. We did apply to FEMA for a larger number because we didn't have those bids in at that time. So in regards to the resiliency funding, I passed out the memo from August. So we had 450,000 in funding. Pier Road, we have a separate grant with separate funding, so we haven't touched the 450 for that. Ocean Avenue, Wanby Beach, the board did approve at the last meeting 125,000 for the final design. And then the causeway is done. The potential future projects were the ideas we discussed as part of the budget, but we haven't committed to any of those at this time. So the only thing we have committed to is the 125,000 out of the 450.
So we're looking, if we look at the the Kennebunk River, and we add the 300,000, and we're over the 450,000 if we do this 100 and.
If you don't get reimbursed.
If you don't get reimbursed.
If you don't get reimbursed, then we would be at 450 minus 125 minus,
300, right?
well, 140, let's say.
140,
For the
141,
beach.
okay.
That leaves us 185.
What do we have
But-
for beach fund still towards the end of this year? Do we have any money left in the beach fund?
Well, there's,
We always have money left
There's
in the
always money
beach
left in
fund
the beach.
because it's a reserve account,
Oh, okay.
but we don't have extra money.
So my question is, if we do this and we don't get reimbursed on the dune grass,
We would have 185,000.
so would be $115,000 short if we were to go.
Well,
to
we've,
Kennebunk.
right, we've applied for, we submitted a grant today to the Broad Reach Foundation for 200, or it was a little under 200,000, to do the initial hydraulic study. There's another grant in the spring that we're looking to apply to that doesn't require a grant, but we could, in-kind match, but we would probably do in-kind services. But if we want to do it all ourselves, we would need a substantial amount of money to do the Kennebunk River, because you heard Kennebunkport is not interested in putting any of their money on the table today.
Correct. But you said that there might be some grant to do this.
Right, so we applied today for one grant with Kennebunk, and there's no match. We just did in kind, no cash match. And there's another opportunity in the spring with the National Fisheries Wildlife to look at Dock Square funding. Now, that's the one we talked about when we had our joint meeting, where they want you to look at natural solutions. You can look at other solutions as well as natural, but if you choose to pursue a non-natural solution, they won't continue to fund you. But we think we have a good shot at that one as well.
Okay. And so say if we don't, we can ask the voters for the extra money.
Yeah. You'd have to go to a
Continue this.
town meeting, yep.
Right. Okay. I think the town would support that.
I would hope. You know, again, we have a near-term need for the sand to be in place to protect against potential winter storms, and that's what this resiliency is about. We have the longer term, not all that long indeed, with the flood potential at Dock Square and in the Kennebunkport town in general. So with a 90% probability of getting the refunded amount, I'm hoping that makes a good balance.
Well, you've done a lot of work on this, and congratulations. You did amazing, and I'm proud of you for doing all the work you did on this thing. I'm in favor of advancing the money.
Can I just talk about the timeline a little bit, just to be clear? So if we do the dunes, and we upfront and we get good news and we're 90%, we would be done in this fall. And so how does it work with FEMA? Upon completion, does the clock tick for 6 months where we get
Well,
reimbursed?
the 6 months isn't firm. I mean, that's, from my understanding, that's what people normally see, 4 to 6 months. It can be even longer, it can be shorter.
Okay.
So it's an approval process that goes through, and we're
But
including a lot of
the
other
clock,
FEMA
the clock
projects.
starts when our beach is done? When the
No,
dunes?
the
clock
clock
has
starts
already
when
started.
Jay submitted our FEMA request. And so the clock starts from the date he submitted it.
Okay, so we haven't started the dune work yet, but the clock is already, the
Approval clock,
approval clock of the 90%,
yeah.
of us getting 90%. So we're already into that 4 to 6 months.
By a couple weeks.
Yeah, but you also, we can file for extensions. I've talked to, and that's handled through MEMA, and I've spoken to them about, hey, what happens if we can't get this done on this timeline? And I believe the timeline, John, was just to get the plants in so they would survive the winter.
Right.
By the middle of
November. Yeah, we're on track to get this done, so extension's not gonna be required.
Right, but I had to officially ask for one, because I didn't want to be last second.
Appreciate it.
But,
So so all systems go, we have everybody lined up to get this done in this fall, and we're already into the clock of the 4 to 6 months. When would we be ready to put some cash on the table for the study? When in reality would we be ready to put cash on table towards the Kennebunk River to get somebody going on that? Is that 6 months out? I'm just trying to understand the overflow of money, like are we even?
It depends on how much money they would need. I don't think you have to pay somebody the full $300,000 to do the
Well,
study up front.
that's what
Well, he's-
I'm trying to
so,
understand,
yeah.
like what
So, I mean,
people's thought of a
we
timeline.
haven't gone out for an RFP. We haven't done any work besides talk to, one set of engineers. So if we were successful with the grant funding, we would continue that work and we wouldn't need any cash, If we wanted to put an RFP out, keep in mind that even though the work isn't all completed, to sign the contract, you need the funding in place. So you could do the first phase of a contract. You could do it in phases, and you could do that work. But right now, I was looking for other grant opportunities. If the board wants to put out an RFP for work and move forward, then, that would start that timeline.
So I think what we would maybe potentially, so go forward with the beach. Our clock is going, we wouldn't want to stall it. We would actually want it to finish it,
Oh, we got to finish.
get it done. And then while we're in that queue, as that shores up, then maybe we have the discussion about, if you're hearing some levels on grants, yes or no, and maybe before the end of the year, we can release the trigger on an RFQ or whatever for the river, and then we'll already get more good news or whatever from FEMA. And so that will help us shore up for what we have to do for anything for a vote if we needed more funds for next June.
Well, I
Well,
think that's
couldn't
very
you-
important.
Couldn't you also include it in next year's budget?
Well, that's what I
Right.
mean. We would, we would have that,
You know, and you know.
we
what the
would
delta
know,
be.
yeah.
And keep in mind that the Silver Jackets are coming to your next board meeting to give you the Silver Jackets, the Army Corps who did the work on Dock Square. And not that they have anything super powerful to report, but they are going to come, and Kenny Bunk will be here with you to hear that report. So it's another opportunity to discuss the river.
Good, that's
Get
great.
them on board.
Yeah, the river's very important. I mean,
And
that's
so the
something
Silver
that's gotta be
Jackets are-
taken care of. What's that?
Silver Jackets are,
They're with the Army Corps of Engineers, and they came back in 2020, and we've been waiting for their report. And so we just got it,
4 years.
and so now they're ready to present to us.
At a joint meeting?
timely.
Yeah,
Yes, at a joint meeting.
Well,
4
they were
years.
just waiting, 4 years.
So
But
what-
they didn't forget
So,
about us.
May I make,
was
so let me make a motion if I may. If any
Sure.
other- Well, I'm sorry, but Dave, any other discussion?
I can make the motion. Or you,
All right,
you
go
make,
ahead.
no, you make the motion, I'll second your motion.
I would like to make a motion that the board approve an expenditure of $140,000 from the
Why don't we make it 141?
$141,000 from the Resiliency Fund to be used for restoration of the sand dunes at Goose Rocks Beach.
Second.
I have a first and second. Any more discussion? Hear none, all in favor?
Thank you for your
There you go, John.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
And moving right along.
And I'd just like to also give a round of applause to Jay, because he took on the EMA director role this year when Craig left, and it was a heck of a year to take that on, and he has learned a lot, but he has been a trooper, and we really
You need to go,
appreciate
you
it.
need to hand that.
Thank you, Jay.
Okay, adoption of the budget development schedule from July 2025 through June 2026.
Yep. Read it? I'm good. Do we just make a motion, or do we need to discuss?
Well, do you want to discuss it, or is everybody fine with it?
Look
Yeah,
good to me.
I was fine with it.
Yeah,
I mean, the schedule follows what we have previously
Nothing new,
done.
yeah.
Gives you the last time we need to sign the warrant by, when the meetings would take place in March, so there's no surprises.
yeah, I'm good with it.
Okay,
Motion?
I'll make a motion. Like to make a motion to adopt the proposed full year 26 budget schedule.
Second.
I have a first and second. Any more discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Here we go. 9, discussion of the budget goals for FY 2026.
We had some,
Say that again?
No, isn't there a calendar? Board of Selectmen calendar?
there's a selectman calendar.
Yeah, there's no, yeah.
What do you mean there's no item for it? There's no backup. 9
Yeah.
is just you
Yeah.
telling me what your budget goals are.
Yeah.
Oh,
But for
You
the
give
Do
me-
you- do you guys have anything on your mind that you might want to put on in the next year's budget?
So,
That's,
oh, this is the budget goals, okay, got it.
yeah. Is it something that you'd like to see done?
Yeah, a lot more resiliency money.
Well,
but
that's-
I'd like to, yeah, I'd definitely like to see more money put in for, working on on Dock Square, on the river, I think that's going to be an important focus. So that'd be one piece that's on my mind.
I would say.
Mary Beth?
Yeah, so I think I would discuss whether or not we would need more money for resiliency fund versus keeping it at a level, because I think for me personally, I think we're at a level of a managing level that, you know, because of the amount of projects and the work that's needed to get stuff done on a yearly basis. So I think we would keep the resiliency fund, but I would want to talk through whether or not we would raise more at this point. I think the other thing was just to make sure, I guess my question, it came up when we had the incident at Dyke Road and Route 9 with the police officers and that rowdy group of public. Do we need, so I guess my question is, do we need any more officers? I didn't know if that's something else that we need in terms of Kennebunkport. My concern was, like, we have listened to, Chief, Jay, talk to us about the 2 in, 2 out. We've gone in great detail for the volunteers, for the fire force, and answering calls, and we understand that in great detail. What I don't really have a line of sight to is in these changing dynamics, and when we get into these situations, I was a little uncomfortable that we didn't have a backup for our officer. Actually, I was very uncomfortable that we didn't have a backup that could get to that officer
Well,
quickly.
I think we did have a backup, didn't we?
We did have a backup, it's just they were in 2 different areas
Yeah.
of town.
But that's what I mean, is that we didn't have, we didn't have a situation where we could get somebody there quicker. So I would like, in terms of the budget, just to make sure that Chief is okay with his force, and that he doesn't need anybody else. I would
I
like
think
to
that's the
understand
point,
that.
yeah. So you're suggesting that we ask the chief and have the chief give us a report?
Yeah, just
I need- I
to
just love
say
the
if,
thought.
given what he's dealing with in town or not dealing with in town, do we need some other things I think would be our buildings. I know, Kai had brought something to our attention. I don't know where that sits. I know we got some feedback back and forth. So I just didn't know if there was some capital expenditures within the workforce areas. We cover equipment quite detailed, which is good, so I feel comfortable about that, but I didn't know if the directors needed anything for their labor force, specifically.
We can talk about all that.
I think we need a town hall.
Be nice.
And
Yes, yeah, well, I know that's I am on the committee.
Yeah.
I think the Public Works Department could definitely use some upgrades. The challenge is, we did meet Owens and Mike Hayes out there and go through the property, and we just got a structural report on the Quonset hut, which is okay for right now, but it needs to be replaced. Is that the concern the issue is, we're using land where there is a dump and there is PFAS. And that land would not be usable for anything else. And so it doesn't make sense to move our Public Works garage. And it is centrally located, so it makes sense there. But the challenge is that we have a septic system there. We don't have public water and sewer. And so I think in a theoretical world, they would have us move further back on the property and build new. I don't think that's in the cards right now. So what I've asked them to look at is kind of a phased approach of how we might make some changes for staff, which is difficult because it's basically a garage with a little overhang. And then, we need to start looking at the storage facilities like the Quonset hut and replacing those and probably add on. I mean, Raymond just had a design done for a Public Works garage, and Owens and Mike sent it to me, and I think it was, estimated, it was about the size we need, the space we need, but the cost is about $5 million.
I was gonna say, probably.
So, it's balancing all these things.
How many acres are over there?
Oh, I,
Right, dumb. Oh,
yeah, we've got
Huge.
quite a few acres, but I don't know the number off the top of my head.
Yeah, but I think that's where, we had, we talk about the equipment and stuff that we have in, and I think that's an important part that we don't go through, in detail, that maybe we need to start looking at is some of the places where we're housing all this gear. Our cruisers, our police cruisers, our road equipment,
Okay.
our trash pump.
David, you?
Pump out station.
No, I agree with John. I think we need to look at climate resiliency fund and its needs. On the public works side, I know that Kai Leffler is interested in improving the work environment or workplace for the public works employees, which I would be supportive of and would want to talk about that. The other issue is, given what we just heard about our valuation, I think we probably need to come into a better understanding of what exactly that impact is, because that will impact every taxpayer in the town if they're going to be losing homestead exemption or anything like that. So I think that needs to also be well understood by the board and members of the budget committee.
Are you done? Is that it?
Oh, that's,
Okay.
yeah.
So my only issue, not an issue, but I feel my responsibility for the town is resiliency. There's 4 or 5 places that need to be really taken care of in the next year or two, and that's so important, and so I would like to really look at the resiliency fund for next year to see what we can do with that.
So I just want to say one last thing before we get out of Dodge on this conversation. I'm sitting here and I'm hearing about our assessment going up. I'm the squirrels are running through my head in terms of, what that's going to do to our school tax thing again, and our, just because of our evaluation, and we still have, a lot of people sitting here trying to make ends meet. We do have a very diverse town. And so I hear people on the resiliency, and I'm right there with you. I think just like anything, we might have to look at some staged approach for things. We do have a really good list. We have Lori and the directors did that excellent job on focusing, on that diagram, on, that chart that showed us, for various reasons, the areas we should concentrate. But I do think we have to, we do have many things that we are looking at within this town, and I think we have to find that balance and make sure that we stay within a comfortable range.
Oh, I agree 100%, but I mean, priorities are,
I just had to say
you
it.
have to look at your priorities.
No.
And,
Yep. I'll leave it at that.
okay.
Thank you, Alan.
Yep. Item 10, discussion of the November and December Select Board meeting dates. You guys you have this, right?
Yes.
We have the 4th.
So usually,
We didn't want to have turkey together?
Why don't we have Thanksgiving together?
Yeah.
there you go. Well, that's fine by me, if
Mary
you're
Beth-
buying.
Mary Beth's cooking.
I'm cooking? No problem. Come on over.
So, we're gonna meet, well, I'm not gonna be here, John's gonna run the meeting on the 14th, but Thanksgiving, we can meet on the 27th in the morning, if that's early, if that's good with you guys.
Well,
I don't know yet if we're gonna be traveling. It's a good possibility. We alternate between grands, and I don't know where we are, to be honest with you, on the cycle.
Could we move it to the following Thursday, do you have to meet twice a month? I know we just passed the rules. Do we have to meet twice a month? As long as we tell people.
Your ordinance says you will meet twice a month, but we need to sign the warrant. That's the big
Oh.
thing.
Yeah.
So
I'll
it's
be-
not that I need you to meet and talk about things, but I do need you to sign the
Oh,
warrant.
And we need 3 people.
What about early on the 26th? Give at least a travel.
I'm around that whole Thanksgiving week.
yeah, I'm here that Thanksgiving week, so if you're
Oh,
looking for
whatever you
3,
need.
if Sheila's
good.
here, we've got
Excellent.
3. I don't know if Sheila's going to be here.
I'm quite sure she is. She didn't say that, she didn't say anything to me about not being
Are you
here.
not here Thanksgiving either?
I'll be here.
So
You'll be
we
here.
could,
You got
So
it.
we could do that
we could
Tuesday
do
or
a,
the
yeah,
Do a warrant on
Wednesday or
27th.
whatever, we
Yeah.
could do a warrant
Yeah, perfect.
signing.
So what day do you want to do it?
I want to do it on the 20, we want to do it on the 27th at 9 a.m.
There you
Well,
go.
what's good for the, Lori, what's good for the town, for you
For
and
you-
your director?
Yeah, for you guys, how about David and them?
Don't David not to be, it's just in Lori's office.
Yeah,
Oh,
Or
no,
we'll do-
no,
we'll
it has
do
to be here.
We'll do it here.
we'll do it here?
We'll just sign the warrant, yeah.
Okay.
Does
All
that
right.
have to be a,
Does it have to
have to
be?
be
We'll,
televised?
we'll make it work.
All right.
Don't you worry about the details.
all right.
So,
11:27, 9 AM.
yep. So, Christmas. Meeting on the 12th,
It's beginning to look good.
and then on the 26th, do you want to sign the warrants on the 24th? Do you want to sign them on the 26th?
Again,
It's up to you guys.
I'll be here that week, but I would.
I would prefer, I will be here, well, I don't know if I'll be here the 26th. That's the 24th I can do.
24th. I'll be here, I'll be here
So let's
Christmas.
do warrant 24th.
on the 20th. You're going to be here?
Again, I don't know which one I'm traveling on.
Okay.
Traveling on one of the two.
Well, I'm going to be here. Mary Beth, you going to be here on the
Yeah,
24th?
and,
David?
I'll be here.
and David will be here.
Okay,
So you got,
Yeah.
it? You got it covered.
so 24th at 9
Well,
o'clock?
Do you-
Does that work
Laurie,
for
do
Lori?
you want to do it on the 24th? Or do
No,
you plan
I
on having
don't.
the? You
Okay,
don't,
what-
so no, if
what-
you don't
what-
want to do it,
when do you?
when
what
do you want to do it?
I know, you're busy. I know,
No, and I know it's an important
I know
time of
you're busy.
year.
Well, you know,
you tell me what
life
day.
is not what it was before.
Would you like to meet?
Do you wanna
When do you want
Or
it?
The 27th, what?
Well, do we have to
pick the
do it
date.
that week, or can we do it on the
For the
20th?
warrant, I think.
Why don't we do it on the 31st at midnight?
Yeah, there you go.
Well, that's when Woburn and Curran's coming back with their study.
We can have somebody here for you. So if you want to do it on the 24th or the 26th
What
or the
would work for you?
27th,
What is it better, what's a
When
better
is it
time
better?
for you?
I would prefer the 26th or 27th.
We'll do it. Yeah, not a problem.
Well,
Right?
if we do Friday the 27th, that's not going to be an issue for me. I will be here.
Yeah, let's do Friday the 27th.
Okay, that sounds good to me. At 9 o'clock?
9 o'clock.
Okay. Yeah, see?
What if there's a blizzard?
See how easy it is?
You are so easy.
What an agreeable crowd.
Okay. Item 11, accept the following donations. $50 from an anonymous donor towards the general nurses account. B, $5,000 from the Flint Family Foundation towards the emergency fuel account
And a
fund.
marvelous thing.
C, $10,000 from the Flynn Family Foundation towards the emergency food fund.
Nice.
D, $12,500 from the Flynn Family Foundation towards the general nurses account. These are all beautiful, and thank you guys for all the donations that you've given. What's the board's,
I will make a motion to accept the 4 donations listed from the Flynn Family Foundation and the anonymous donor for the various accounts, with gratitude.
I have a first,
Second?
Have a
With
second?
gratitude.
all in favor?
With gratitude.
Thank you guys very much. That's just wonderful. I mean, all the way from A all the way through D. This town is so gracious. Okay, item 12, other business. Dave,
I have none.
None.
you don't have anything?
Keep moving, Alan.
What's
Got
that?
In
none.
Keep it
honor,
moving.
in honor of Sheila, when she's not here, I'm gonna have no business. When she shows up, I'll hold it for
Oh my
them.
God, how are we gonna be able to adjourn without Sheila? The only thing I would like to bring up is, we all received a letter from a resident with concern about the buses. And I know we've tried to address this in the past. I just, I want to keep the issue alive, find a way to do some creative thinking. I'm not clear exactly what it would be. I don't have a lot of things to propose, if anything, to propose tonight. But there needs to be some kind of a solution to the volume of tourists and the number of buses that come into town, particularly in this October, this tree peeping, leaf peeping environment. And I would like to just commend it to our thinking. and try to discuss it, if not at the next meeting, to at least discuss it among ourselves. It doesn't do anybody any good. It doesn't do our merchants any good. There may be one or two, but most that I have talked to would prefer it not to be that way. It's difficult to do business. It's dangerous. It just doesn't make sense. So, with some creative thought, we can get our town back for our residents in October. It used to be a time, I remember my parents used to love it. After Labor Day, everybody left, and we got our town back. Now it goes into November. So, that's my thought.
Good thing Sheila's not here.
Yeah, that's why I can say.
So
it.
can we talk a few minutes about that, or no?
Sure, if you talk all you want. I have till midnight.
Go ahead.
So I agree, we should think, but can I get some boundary conditions about what our thought process could be? Because I think my recollection, and I'm looking for clarification, and I might not have been able to read my email before,
No,
but,
I read it. I think
you know, I don't know if, like, I think the town, so I'm just looking for clarification so that I have some boundary conditions in terms of where I can think for this problem. So the town tried to limit the buses, I think, previously, and then we couldn't because it was interstate and interstate commerce freedom. So we can't limit people coming into town with buses. And I think the town then, again, I wasn't within this, so I'm looking for clarification if I don't have the correct understanding. Then the town went to the trolley museum and set up that parking lot to at least be able to alleviate the buses moving out of the center of town and sitting, waiting for that. So I understand, you know, again, I was rejoicing on my way here tonight because I ran into one car from the beach to here. And I almost cried with joy because I'm like, oh, this is wonderful. So I can understand where you're coming from, but at the same time, I'm just looking for help from the rest of the board and Lori on what is actually acceptable for thinking about a solution here.
Well, that's why I would propose something maybe a little more creative, like, and I have always felt that this could be a solution for the beach as well, but it's a four-letter word dealing with bus. But the set up a out of town in a perimeter, a large lot that has charging stations for electric vehicles that can ferry people from an external satellite area into town and back. Don't have everything crunch into town. Rather have places where there's satellite areas where the buses collect and run their dirty engines, and you bring people into town with an electric trolley that's circulating all the time. I mean, there are some creative things we could think about that would create a much more livable environment for a commercial downtown than what we currently have to deal with these buses trying to turn into Union Street and dump off people and park. So I don't know what it would be. But you can't put up a sign and say no buses, I got that. But you can try to manage, and which we did with the parking at the trolley. That helped with the parking, but you still have the buses coming in to pick up and drop off people. Let's look at possible ways of mitigating that. So that's all.
Well, buses hold.
40 to 60.
That's correct. So, and sometimes you'll have 7 or 8 or 10 buses in one day.
Sometimes
So-
you have 30 buses.
Sometimes you have
30,
30 buses.
35 buses.
So how are you gonna transport 30 busloads of people in smaller vans or whatever? I mean, I just don't see that.
Well, it depends on how many buses you're gonna have. At least you've got something that titrates that down. If they can't move enough people, well then, gee, they're gonna have to have less buses come in.
So I
As
think,
long as you keep enough folks coming into town to make the shop owners happy. Right now, there's too many. It's just a glut.
well, that's why I think it's like a self-correcting problem
Yeah,
where
but
you're gonna get to a point where people aren't gonna enjoy themselves when they're coming into town, because they're not gonna be able to get to restaurants, they're not gonna be able to get access to what they need. It's gonna be a crowded mess, and they're gonna say they're gonna opt out. I get your point,
Hadn't
that
happened.
it hasn't happened yet.
It's,
The other point I'd like to raise is when we were up at Bar Harbor last fall, that was the first time I saw the cruise ships out in the harbor. And when we were talking to one of the park rangers, he was informing us that they had just passed that law there, or the ordinance, that only so many people could come off a cruise ship at a time because they were inundating the town. And now the cruise ship industry was suing, the town. So I think this is where I hear what you're saying, John, and trust me, I will put on a thinking cap and be right there with you. But I'm just trying to get some idea of what is the art of the possibility here when you're dealing with, commercial businesses, freedoms of commercial businesses, and we are a tourist town, right? And I would take the thing, because we said it, I think, at one of the previous meetings about Prelude. Prelude was a very smaller event, and now it's become very much a tourist attraction.
Right.
So I would argue that tourist season doesn't end until January 1st.
So I guess we can talk about this at a later date.
Right,
for sure.
oh, for sure, and
Right.
that really was the intent.
So can I just say
Yes.
that, I've spent a lot of time on the bus situation. And so the chamber does greet buses and tries to register them. That was part of our agreement after the lawsuit. And I think they do a fairly good job of that. But there are many buses that do not register, and there is no requirement that they register. And then there are buses that, across the river in the pilot house, they have agreements with them to go out on a boat tour and get lunch and park buses. So there's a few different ways that these buses are coming in, and some are just random. They're coming from Pennsylvania or down south, and they're taking a tour through. And then we have the cruise ships, and the cruise ships have really created a lot of bus traffic. And they have now started to limit the times. Some of these people only have an hour and a half here.
Right.
And we've talked to the chamber about it, and last year I was in conversations with Kennebunk and them again, because I think it has just gotten too much. The other issue is we get a lot of complaints about the restrooms, because it's like a concert. We have these little restrooms that are meant for people coming and going, but when that many buses show up and people get off the bus, that's what they do. They all go to the restroom, and we get a very long line, and I get complaints about the cleanliness of it, because it's just not meant for that kind of crowd. So to me, if the board is serious about it, I think that having a couple of board members meet with the chamber to understand kind of the ins and outs of it, and also try to get the Kennebunk board on board, because they do not feel the impacts the way we do. And that's been my concern. And so some of it is outside of our control. And there are businesses that depend on the bus traffic. And there are businesses that are able to keep people employed longer because of that, and are able to stay open longer. And so it is a fine line we are trying to work. But my concern, and what I said to the chamber last year, is it's going to get to the point where the residents explode and start passing laws, whether they're legal or not. And so I think we do need to do something about it.
And I think Mike had sent us an article before
Thank you.
from Spain, right?
Right.
In Madrid, where they were looking to,
Water pistoling people.
they were doing things to the tourists, just because.
Waterboarding them?
No, water pistoling. But they were, because I think that you read about this all over the place, the cruise ships, and there's a lot of industries that are really just pumping people through
It's gotta-
areas that are not met
Gotta be
to
with the
take,
regulations.
I can remember 20 years ago, we had the same issue with the buses. They tried to keep all the buses out of town.
Yeah.
And it was really, it wasn't a nice scene, I can tell you that right now. And I know that Sheila remembers that, and she's gonna bring all that up. It was a big, huge fight for at least a couple of years. And, I'm all in favor of looking at it and see what we can do about it, absolutely. But I just know that,
Lori, are there any other towns that we could learn anything from that have been successful? We're not the only people dealing with this.
I think there are communities that limit vehicles of a certain weight. Keep in mind, we have a state route that goes right through our downtown, so we can't regulate that. In other areas, you could regulate the size of vehicles and create parking on the outside of town. That's what I see communities doing, is providing that service.
Right.
And putting it in an area where people can still walk to it. But we just don't have
We
that
don't have the
land.
real estate for
We,
that.
back then, I remember talking about, the McCabe property on Route 9, where they mentioned about parking buses there, but then we got into a big brouhaha with some of the neighbors on Route 9,
sure.
near the McCabe property.
Sure.
And that failed.
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
Well, as Laurie said, though, a lot of these buses now, they drop them off, they're here for an hour and a half. By the time they get off the bus, get into the bathroom line, get out of the bathroom line,
Exactly.
they're looking to get back on the bus, they don't even have time. So I just think
And with the
Well-
drop in labor, that the restaurants can't even
they can't
do
even
as
serve.
many, so they can't even get lunch.
Right.
So then the chamber was looking at, should we
Box
provide
lunches.
vendor or box
Lunches.
lunches or something of that nature?
But that's
Sometimes it's a
exasperating.
2-hour
Yeah,
wait
that it is.
to get into
Yeah.
the restaurants down.
Yeah, but that's
gotta-
exasperating the problem when you try to
Good.
put some
You gotta
Band-Aids
let
in there.
Darwin work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Ooh, the Darwin, I like it.
it's worth another discussion, but.
Yeah.
Okay,
So do you want 2 board members to work with the chamber? Is that?
I think,
I think we have to come up with some.
I think you give it some thought, but
Okay.
Think of who I could,
it is gonna take some work. And the other thing is, come January, that's when the cruise lines have set their schedules for next summer and fall. So you don't have a lot of time,
yeah.
even though it feels far away.
But they won't do, I mean, so if we go by what just happened in Bar Harbor, anything we would do to impact a cruise
Well, that would have to come from Portland, and they're not gonna do it.
would not, yeah, they're not, I mean, they're not gonna, it would have to be, like John's saying, something to mitigate the impact. You're not gonna stop the flow.
No, and those people, you kind of said it'll give itself out eventually. No, these people come on
I
cruise
mean-
ships, they've never been here before, they're not gonna stop coming.
do you want to keep the buses from downtown, or do you want to keep the people from downtown? What are we talking about?
Well, it's
Buses or
actually,
the people?
well, it's,
Well, they're kind of hand in hand at this point. If I had to choose one or the other, I'd say keep the people out, let the buses sit there. No, obviously, you keep the buses out. Yeah, but that's
not,
Yeah.
I think it's only addressing half the thing, because if you're looking at just the buses, you're gonna get different, to Alan's point, you're just gonna replace it with different types of vehicles.
you know,
you know.
electric trolleys doing the same thing, and I
It's just,
don't
it's
disagree. I
it's
don't
just,
disagree.
it's the flow.
It's the number.
Yes, it's the number. I don't think it's per se buses. I think it's the quantity that comes in with the bus
We don't have
And-
the amenities
and the
to,
quantity.
to deal with that
Yes,
volume.
it's a,
Especially the
it's a,
bathroom.
Our whole structure
Yeah,
isn't there.
it's a
Even
flow
the-
problem.
You
Yep.
don't have the restaurant, other than the clam shack. I'm sure it makes out gangbusters, but it's the
So
only
you,
place you can
do
eat.
you have anything else on you?
No, that's it.
That's it? I don't have anything. Laurie, do you have anything?
So last night, I attended our multi-town meeting where we're talking about tipping fees. So remember that Casella is our contract for tipping. The town signed a 15-year agreement or a 20-year agreement years ago. Anyway, it's up next summer.
Oh, wow.
It came. So we've been working with a group of municipalities. I think there's like 9 or 10 or 12 of us. And so we had a subgroup. We did put out requests for proposals. We have 3 proposals back, one from Casella, one from Waste Management, and one from Eco Maine.
Wait a minute, this blows me away. So what is I thought Casella had a tipping fee and that's what we pay. How does the tipping, talk to me. How does
We
the
have a
tipping-
contract for our tipping, that they will take our waste and dispose of it.
And it's with Casella and only
It just
Casella?
happens to be Casella, yeah.
So
But it
that
was a
contract's up.
15-year contract?
It was a long contract,
Good
yeah.
God, have an escalation clause in it?
Oh, yeah, yep.
I see.
So,
Everything has an escalation.
Well, for 15 years, I hope so, yeah, I guess that's.
so this year, we're paying about $84 a ton for our MSW. And they take it to their facility. And so in 2025, next year, our contract is up. So one thing I can tell you is you're gonna look at least a $20 a ton increase, maybe $30, $40 a ton. And so we are examining all three proposals. I would tell you that Casella's is only offering us a 5-year proposal, and they want to pass through any additional hauling charges or regulation fees. So there's a lot of question marks around that.
But the whole thing we just did with Casella, that raised us from $300,000 to $500,000, that did not include tipping fees?
No.
Far
That was
out.
just
That-
to collect it.
Just the service, I did not realize that.
So by default, will our quantity go down year over year because we're limiting? We have containers now?
I mean, time will
Only if
tell.
people compost.
If we're taking the commercial businesses out of the equation, and so we should see somewhat of a reduction.
We are taking the commercials out of it.
Well, we haven't
Well,
yet, you know,
The big ones,
They'll be
But
happy.
2025,
the bigger ones will go,
The ones that can't do a container,
exactly.
right.
yes.
Right, but I'm just saying, right now, this moment in time, we.
No, but I
Yeah.
mean, like when we
Yep.
get to our thing and
Right.
that's, so.
But the
and-
question is how much, because it's all been combined in the past, and so I don't know what tonnage is really commercial versus residential. But we normally do about 2,400 ton a year of waste, and we do about 400 ton of recycling.
So 2,400 ton for the whole thing, commercial and
Yeah,
residential.
that's what we've had. So, all I'm telling you is that, the group is gonna meet again the first week in December. I brought all the numbers back. I started a conversation with Casella today. See, for some communities, they just have a transfer station. And so all they have to worry about is hauling it from their transfer station to the end vendor, whether it's EcoMaine, Waste, or Casella. We have a contract where we don't have a transfer station, so whoever does our automated waste pickup
So they'll
transports it.
take it.
They
either to-
transport it, right. And the way their system works right now is they transport it to Wells because they bought Oceanside,
Yeah.
you know? And so if we want them to go to EcoMaine, those trucks only hold so much. And so they have, you know, a plan to go so often. If we want to go to EcoMaine, we might need more than one truck, they're saying.
Right.
It's a very complicated
Right.
spider web.
So the price that they gave us that we budgeted is if we go to Casella. If we
The
change
price
that-
they gave us is only for pickup. And they
But you
gave us a
gotta take it
price,
somewhere.
that's part of the tipping contract. So
I
if you'll
see.
remember, our
I
bid,
see.
our bid document said the tipping contract will be up in July 25, and that'll need to be negotiated.
Paradise Space.
Yep, and so the recycling, we did agree to a 5-year, so we are paying them to process our recycling. But there are some other options on the table. I'm saying Casella is being pretty cagey and protecting, you know, their situation, which makes me feel like I want something more long-term. I'm looking for
Yeah.
stability
Yeah.
for the community, but that's gonna come with other costs. And so those will be things that you'll have to weigh in the future, but right now I'm trying to work the numbers and talk to the other communities.
So, just a history lesson for me, when we had the dump, was that a transfer station?
No, it was a
No,
dump.
it was a dump.
Yeah.
A transfer station means you collect it and move it someplace. So it was just a dump because you took it
Gotcha,
and you
you
left
just
it
dumped
there.
See you later.
Okay.
And now we're
And now you
covered it over.
And a transfer
Probably did.
station means,
PFAS is good.
Yeah.
a transfer station would mean what for the
It's what
town?
C Road is
It's what
now.
C Road and
C
Kennebunkport
Road's
is.
basically, that's a transfer station.
That's a very poor transfer station,
Yeah,
but normally it's a building where you take in materials, you have 30-yard dumpsters that you collect MSW, you'll have recycling there. Sometimes people are bailing the recycling and collecting it, other times you're just collecting it to take elsewhere. The town is then responsible for transporting it to a facility, and you make a contract for that. So, I mean, and you offer that to residents, so you might take construction debris, mattresses, furniture fixtures, things like that, and you collect those, and then you dispose of those. So then you have a whole system and staff to manage that. So like Arundel has a transfer station. Kennebunk hired their transfer station out to CPRP, so they don't really have anything to do with it. Their contract is coming up, as well as their automated waste collection contract, as well as their tipping fee contract. So let me tell you, Kennebunk was like, last night.
So they have a transfer station in Kennebunk, but they still pay a tipping fee because they third-party it?
They don't pay any tipping fee because it's automated waste. The automated waste is getting collected by Casella, and they're in the contract with Casella for the tipping fee.
It's a lot of moving parts here.
So the only thing they have at Kennebunk, so usually when you have a transfer station, you don't have automated pickup.
Okay.
But people take
Because
stuff
people-
Oh,
there.
because people just take it.
They take, you can have one, but, you know, in a bigger city, you might have one for special stuff. So Kennebunk has a 10-yard dumpster that you can throw your paper bag trash bags in. But really, that's all they do. So then Casella comes and picks up the dumpster and takes it, and that's part of that. All the other materials that you want to get rid of are run by CPRP.
At Sea Road.
Yeah.
And so,
With the price that fluctuates depending on the day and
Yes.
time.
Yeah.
And depending on how many,
and your accent, and, yep. Yeah, I haven't got my main accent down to get the price down. Okay, so is there any part of this that makes, this is gonna sound like a weird question, but I have to ask it. Is there any part of this transfer of recyclables, garbage, anything that actually makes money for the town? Like if
Oh,
we
no,
did-
no.
So these are all, like, if we try, like if we tried to do I think a while ago, somebody brought up something about a cardboard, and you had done some work with your directors and sent back a memo to the board that says, okay, we looked into this, and if we did a cardboard collection, it would mean this. So it's not there's no, like, you know, doing recyclables,
Right.
make some money out of it.
There are times when recyclables make a little money and you get a rebate from your costs. So like right now, we're paying $190 a ton, and they look at their average cost, and if they are able to make some revenue, they'll rebate some of that.
That's
But
what
it's,
Eco-Maine does.
right, EcoMaine and, well, Casella did, but
Did they?
they just had a much higher threshold.
Got it.
But
I remember.
it doesn't make money. People think recycling is free or it makes money, and it doesn't. You know, the cardboard people even now are controlling the plants, and so they're controlling the price by shutting down the plants and then letting the cardboard price drop because everybody has so much cardboard. So it's a complicated situation. But I wanted to let you know that we're going to come and talk to you about the tipping fee contract and what you want to do. In the past, these towns all went together, you know, and there was some weight by joining together. You know, last night, the question was, it might make sense for people to do different things this time around. And I'm going to be talking with Casella next week about, so I kind of let the cat out of the bag with Casella about Eco-Maine. Eco-Maine's offered us a very good deal, but the problem is it may cost us so much in trucking to get it to Eco-Maine that it doesn't make sense.
Well, it's sort of counterproductive too, if you're recycling and you're trucking it longer.
Trucking's expensive.
Trucking's expensive.
But Eco-Maine also does waste. So they have made us an offer to be an owner community, which
What-
they would never have done before.
When buses come through town, could we
we-
open up some of their bays and stick some of our recycling cardboard in? When it's stuck at the trolley museum? I'm just saying.
They're
I
just
like it.
saying.
I like
it's
it.
creative.
It's creative.
You're asking for out-of-the-box thinking. I'm just
anything
helping.
That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
That's it for all the good news.
yeah.
Wow, there's a lot
Item
tonight.
13, approve the October 24th, 2024 treasurer's warrants.
So moved.
Second.
The first and second, all in favor?
John, you're in
Motion
the
to
chair.
adjourn.
Second,
Come on,
second.
second. Oh, I'm the
First-
chair. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah,
First and second.
I missed it.
yeah. You were in
Thank
the
you,
chair.
everybody.
You were in Sheila's
Thank you.
chair. You
Good.
should
I should have done it.
Have
I
a
was
good evening.
Slow at the.